Hi there, traders, and welcome to Trade the Structure and the Morning Jumpstart Macro View. Coming into the new trading day, start of the Asian session, we're going to take a look at what happened overnight in the US markets and our key markets and levels to watch where we can get some trade action potentially today or tonight. So we've got US payrolls coming out tonight. It was the end of the quarter last night, and the markets had obviously been ramped up to where they wanted to go coming to the close of the quarter, and then they've sold off overnight. So it was unusual. The US actually got knocked down, which is usual. We've been speaking about this into the close previously. The last few sessions, the algos would turn on about 10 minutes prior or something, half an hour prior to the close, ramp the market back up just to minimize any losses that might have been around or just sort of extend on those gains. But last night, they sort of turned, they reversed. Someone pressed the wrong button and they actually headed south the last hour or so into the close. Really took a bit of a hit. So you can see the SPY sold down here, and we'll take a look at those. We'll take a look at the other markets as well. So kicking off, we've got the SPY SPY 200, not 100, the 200, and it's come through that support zone. And that was, like I said, the last few minutes of trade come into the close just prior to 7 a.m. and is at 74.53, so it got sold off there. And you can see on the SPY, it was kind of a reverse of the previous few sessions. So once the market had actually closed during the day, and it was 4 p.m. Sydney time, thereabouts, when the markets reopened, they've been sort of flushing and then ramping up. They've been ramped up each session. Now, this was one of the first sessions because it's the end of the actual the quarter in the Australian time zone. They got sold off. So it was looking like any sort of these long hedges that were trying to drag the market up have been unwound a bit. So that's what, just looking to me, you've got this market sort of pumped up and then it started to hold these lower levels at 74.91 and started to head south. There's actually another little minor lower high we could contend with today at around here, was at 74.70. So we'll be looking. I won't be surprised if it flushes down on the open. Okay, so a bit of unwind. They might just try to push it a little bit further down. 74.32 is roughly where it's going to open potentially. It's 20 points down. There's really not much for the market to sort of jam down into that zone and see if we can get a higher low off there. So I'll be anticipating that, but it could just as easy to be a bit of a flush and start to ramp. So there's a few. It's basically around this level, 74.32 or 74.14, which I expect to be, to get some sort of action. Whether it's just going to get, the SPY's got the SPY in the Aussie market's got a tendency just to ramp in one direction and then sort of chop around that direction for the rest of the day. Well, it has lately anyway. Look at the 30-minute chart on the ASX. For me, that's your rising uptrend has been well and truly supported. You got this little flush up, okay, then it started getting supported all the way up, and that was, like I said, into the end of the quarter, ramping it up. They've ramped it up to 75.50, and then it started to fail, and this was that action from last night. Now we've broken that rising uptrend, okay, with a push through 74.85 and down to 74.63. So we just have to be wary. This could be the start of something bigger. So if it does ramp down, I'll look for a bit of a grind up, maybe the couple of sessions grind up, and then look for that shoulder trade, which is a lower high, a key lower high. I want to see a key lower high for a bigger move down, okay? If not, then we just might get a bit of a grind down and then another run back up to the highs. Asian markets, so that started off with the Hang Seng, that's been sold down. Now, this action here, when the US got knocked on the head, was after the close of the futures market on the Hang Seng. So this is a CFD price, and so you're going to get some sort of gappy open on the futures market, and then which is at 12 o'clock, 12:15, sorry, Sydney time, and then at 12:30 you got the index opening, which is going to gap down on the open. Okay, so the index itself closed around was it 7 p.m. So it's at 19, somewhere around here. Okay, somewhere around here. So if you measure that out, we're going to get somewhere around a 350, 400 point drop on the open, gap down. Doesn't mean it's going to be a gap fill. Okay, the Hang Seng can do that. It can just gap down and keep going. Okay, they can just keep drive down into support. So if that's the case, I wouldn't mind seeing a bit of a flush up on the 12:15 open, attack 21.42, just to try to get some either squeeze out some of those shorts and potentially just trap some longs and then take a bit of a dive. If we do this kind of thing and start to bounce off this level, I'm expecting a bigger push down. Now that's about an extra 400 point drop into this 21.294 zone, but it's possible. Being a Friday, we've got US payrolls out tonight as well, which is a big number, and everyone's now end of quarter. They're now refocusing back on inflation and what that means. Okay, the Nikkei. Now this is initial leg down. Then we got some consolidation through here, and that extending it down. You're taking it down, and it could potentially move into 27,150. Could be today, could be tonight. Anything's possible. So what I'm anticipating is a bit of a flush up. If we want to get weakness, I'd anticipate a bit of a flush up just to bring in some buyers, squeeze out some of these sellers, and then trap some more buyers for a squeeze down. Okay, that's what I'm anticipating. Otherwise, we're just going to get this kind of action, bit of back and fill, potentially back and fill up until the start of the US session when we get that number out. Okay, Dow. Now, like I said, big flush down that last hour or so of trade from 6 to 7 p.m. Sorry, 7 a.m. Sydney time. Big flush down. So that was algo is just tricking everyone. Everyone's expected it to ramp up right through support, dragged. So anyone that's sort of buying off the support area just got squeezed out. Okay, and then you would have found there's been a few more buyers just sitting on the bid at 74,892. And got flushed out as well. So it's in no man's land at the moment. I would rather see a bit of a push up here, squeeze some of these sellers out before we get some more weakness and the lower high to work off. Otherwise, it could just be a lower high here and just go down to your lower time frames if you're trading intraday anyway, potentially a 5-minute chart just for a push into that 34.65. Okay, so that's what I'd be looking for. But if I'm going to get just from where it is here, look for a lower high. I'm going to be more scalpy. It's not going to be a bigger trade because it is extended on the downside. Okay, US tech, which is the Nasdaq. It's it's been a gradual sort of a sell down. Okay, you can see some lower highs that are holding quite nicely. Let me just get some pretty colors for you here. We've got sort of a lower high coming here. You've got a push down, bit of a bounce, so that got a bit of extended into that support zone where you found, flushed the support, worked its way back. Now, when it works its way back and doesn't retest it, I'm looking for a lower high. I'm looking for that 1-2 moves, which it got. One went sideways, another secondary move up, and then looking for that, it retested it, so it came out quite nice. And then you got the lower highs to work into. That's what ideally you're looking for. Now that we're potentially getting this kind of move, okay, extended move down. So what are we going to do? I wouldn't be looking for a lower high here purely because that's extended. I'll be looking for this secondary move back up. Okay, so ideally that would be quite nice if you can get this sort of move up, coming to the start of the US session, see what the numbers are, see if we can get that lower high to work off for another move down, potentially down to 14,640. Now we've got DAX. We were talking about this yesterday, a bit of a bounce. We were talking about, okay, is this just going to be a retest and bounce? Now that played out nicely. And one thing I do want to say is know your levels, because the levels are important. You can see by this sort of flush up into this level here, we've had that marked up 14,725 and then it failed. Okay, so tested the level, dragged in some buyers. You've got this high, low, drag in buyers and then turn around and dump on them. Okay, so yeah, it's important that you know your levels. You know where the market could be heading to. Now, if it fails off here, you're looking for that lower high, maybe your lower time frame charts. Could have been hard to get into there, but if you've got a zone, let me just draw that up. You've got a little zone in here, a little shoulder you can trade off, another little shoulder. If it starts to continue to be pressured, you haven't got a lot of risk on that. You break at the box to the downside, risk is above. Same here, you box it up, break of the box to the downside, your risk is just above that box. You got your lower high and see how far it goes, because it's sort of going from level to level. And if we mark that out, I've got a feeling this is going to be a bit like the other volatility projection. That's it there. Okay, so just marking that up, it didn't quite, it sort of extended that. You could have been taking it from the high there, but that volatility, that move down there, a bit of a pullback, another move down, takes you down to that support zone. So what you're doing when you project these out is looking left, just looking for an area where it could fall short. Okay, it could run into. You don't want to get caught out thinking this is the big move and then turn around and bounces and you give back all your gains, or you take a small loss, a small win. You'll want to sort of anticipate and potentially peel some off your trade. If you've got a couple of lots trading, if you trade CFDs, you're trading 10, 20 lots at a time or 10 lots at a time, you might peel some off at 3, 5, whatever you want to do. I generally take half off and try to let the other half run. If it starts to get weaker, I start to peel a few more off if I can. But that's the way I take it. That way you're open for a continued move down and you're not going to take too much damage if it reverses. You're not going to give back too much. Okay, so that's the idea of using those volatility projections. So DAX, it's bounced off here. I would expect a bit of a chop around coming to the start of the US session. European markets might be a bit mixed on the open. You might get a bit of volatility, and the fact that it's got sold off last night, it could get flushed into this level. It might get flushed a bit lower, but I would expect it's going to sort of settle down coming to, was it 11:30? I think 11:30 Sydney time, where they've got the number released. Okay, the UK, you can see that was the uptrend. It sort of broke that, trapped a few shorts, ramped straight back up again. So it's found a level here at 75.84. Retested that, flushed that level before we took a nosedive. So if you're looking for trades, this is an ideal kind of thing you want to be looking for. Once you get that flush up through here, you've got this level, taking out the highs, tested into the highs here, okay? Traded just through there before we failed. It's quite a deep correction. Then it went straight back up. I'm assuming that's the open of the European session. Flushed it before we got this lower high, and that's the first sort of time you're holding below the MAs, okay? And especially after that flush. So that's a nice little trade area, nice zone. You got your sell down through the low, risk above, and just see where it goes to. And it turned out quite nicely. We've pushed through this 75.17 area. I would be looking for, on the open of the European session, potential a spike into that 74.65. Okay, and then from there, we just have to wait and see. Okay, the currencies, just look at US dollar. So US dollar is still longer term range bound between these highs at around, was it 99.30? Say 99.25, 99.30, these highs through here. And then you've got this low around the 97.50 zone, or probably a little bit higher, say 97.70, thereabouts. But it is just trading between these zones. I would say that, a lot of positions have been already placed, already factored into the market coming into the US payrolls tonight. It'll be interesting to see. It's kind of in no man's land for me at the moment. The US dollar, you might be just sort of retesting into this area. Whether that's a key area or not is debatable. It's kind of mid-range, all right? So mid-range, if it doesn't do too much coming into the number, the release of the number, there's a chance it's going to get chopped both sides. So just be careful if you're going to trade over that number intraday. All right, so for the Aussie's kind of resilient still. It's to be honest, it's a bit of a mess as well. You've got a zone through here at 74.66, retested, come off, flushed into it before we, chopped our way up to 75.30. But for me, it looks like we're wanting to hold off 74.80. So you've got two things: inflation, which everyone's trying to work out what the rate rises are going to be into the US dollar, but offsetting that is rate rises into the Aussie dollar. So you've got US and Aussie rate rises that the market is trying to contend with, especially for this currency pair, the Aussie US. Okay, so for me, you can see it's a battle. Okay, if the US dollar takes a bit of a hit and nosedives, it's kind of an easy battle. Okay, you're looking at the Aussie pair rallying because you've got the support from a weakening US dollar and Aussie rates, rate rise supporting the Aussie dollar. So you've got the pair that way. Okay, which means the market's heading higher. But when you've got them both getting supported, it kind of makes things a mess and a bit more of an algo-driven market, a bit of a chop market. Okay, for now, it looks like it's holding off that 74.80. Could just be another flush up before we turn around and head south down to 74.66. So it's just at the moment searching for liquidity. Now, if you start to break through these kind of minor levels in here, then you've got a key lower high. We could start attacking this high up here, 75.13, or even into this high here, 75.17, higher. If you start to look at your volatility projections, that's, just make it yellow to be consistent. That's kind of your projection up. If we clone that, we're looking for a potentially move up to 75.30. Okay, euro. So that US dollar, bit of a bounce, saw this market move down. So it's sort of the inverse of what we saw in the US dollar. US dollar come down and ramped up. This has gone up and ramped down. Okay, so it's come off at 11.36, and like I said, know your levels. It's been a key level prior. We were talking about this yesterday. This is major resistance. I was looking for a short off here. Okay, mark that up, send it to our Discord channel. So if you don't know about our Discord, jump online to our website, www.tradethestructure.com. Take a look around. You can always email us for the Discord channel. Happily join in the community, and you can just see more chat about different levels we're putting out. Okay, so that was the short. I was just looking for a bit of a breakthrough there. I was hoping that it would happen during the Asian session, but it didn't. Okay, which 9 times out of 10 it doesn't. It's going to happen either in the European session or come into the US Open. Okay, when you get these moves in the currencies, and that's because it's linked to the US dollar at the moment. So unless it's going to be news driven, it's kind of hard to anticipate when that's going to break down. But I was pretty confident that was going to break down, and lo and behold, you got more of a shoulder in this area here to work off. That's not what I want there. I want this. Okay, and that's what played out quite nice. You got a really good move down. I was hoping it was going to be, like I said, marked up something like this, and we're going to drive down the Asian session, but it was probably a long shot, to be honest. Major resistance was up here. It flushed that, trapped a few buys through these highs, and then turned around and dumped on them. Okay, so we moved down. That was pretty much the kickoff for the European session at 6 p.m. Sydney time. Bang, straight down. So nice little trade there. Did have a bit of a flush up, like I said, so we could be looking for that secondary move down. That's kind of your move there, potential secondary move down, take out this low and extend those losses. Okay, pound, when it decides to come up there, you've got, like I said, the chop. It's a bit like the Aussie. You've got rate rises. They're talking about rate rises, had a rate rise on the pound, potential looking at more if inflation continues. It's working the same effect. Okay, and it looks like the BOE is trying to get it under control, inflation under control by rate rises, which would mean a bit of support coming into the pound. And it's fighting against the US dollar as well. So that's like the Aussie, it's a bit choppy. Finding some support off that 31.08 zone, and it's come down and retested in the 31.26. So it's still these, what we've been talking about the last few days. High lows here, nice little base, big flush through that zone there before we ramped up. It's come back in, and that looks to me like another key higher low, which would mean that you could be looking for a bigger move. If that's a projection up there, a bigger move up to this 32.20, even flushing that high through there. So I'll be more biased up off this one. You just don't want to get caught in the flush, and remembering that if nothing really happens before US Open, the US payrolls, you're probably going to be part of that flush, that chop. Okay, US yen, like I said, the Bank of Japan, BOJ, don't really want a higher yen. They're trying to ward off the short sellers into the yen. They don't want a lower yen. They're trying to ward off those short sellers into the yen by just threatening intervention. And that's all they really probably got to do, because there's quite a lot of longs. There's a stack of longs built up into the US yen. One, because the US dollar, but the US dollar has been, all this time, it's been chopping about around in that range. Every time it starts to work off the lows, go bid to offer in the US dollar, the yen's ramping up, or the US yen's ramping up. And it looks like we've got that big flush through that highs. We said November 2015 highs, big flush through, and we're starting to work back down again. So that's kind of a line in the sand for the BOJ. Just try and defend that level, and the market's going to do it itself potentially. So we've got a lower high here at 122.405, and a higher low working, or support zone at 121.31. It is still holding lower highs. It's just breaking this downtrend. Whether it's starting to find some support at here and start to bump up again, we just have to wait and see. I wouldn't be touching this just yet until we find out more of what's happening in US payrolls tonight. Gold's a nice little thing. It's it's finding potentially a bit of a safe haven bid, which would be nice. It depends what happens tonight in the US market. If they had really strong numbers, stronger than expected in employment data, you expect that to pressure the market potentially, because now we're talking up inflation. Okay, it's growth, it's inflation. Maybe you find a bit of a safe haven bid if the equity market roll over. And I think gold safe haven and bidding higher through 1950 is going to be linked to that, and linked to sort of that inflation, or the US market or index sell-off, which we could get again. Oil's nice. I think OPEC were talking about not changing, probably not releasing any more barrels or any more supply to market, but not changing whether they were thinking they were going to cut. Maybe it's a thing like Russia, hoping they were going to cut supply to get that to start supporting the price of oil. But I don't think they're doing that. They're sticking to their guns, which they have been for a while, which means that the market's starting to find equilibrium, I would guess. So you got the high up here we've spoken about before, lower high, and the market's working its way down. So I'm just watching to see really if this lower high in here can hold and keep pressuring that market down through 101.75 into that 93.15, which we've been speaking about the last few days. Copper, you got this, like I said, same as oil, high up here at 107.18, then you've got a lower high. It failed. Okay, whether it's failing, it's all dependent on that 103.65 holding or not. If it starts to work its way back up through that zone, I'll be betting on the fact that it's going to work its way back to 107.18. Okay, if it starts to flush below that zone, you've got two scenarios. It starts to pressure higher, retest and go. That's what you'd be looking for longs, or it starts to fail pretty much right where it is, and you get some sort of action like that. Whoop, we can draw that up and start to head back down again. And that would be a lower high in even the retest fail, double top. You got your shoulder in here to work off for shorts, and look for that breakdown through 101.93. And I think the bigger picture move could be down to 148, even lower. All right, Bitcoin or your cryptos pretty much did nothing, kept chopping, kept dragging in. I think it was just trapping longs until it dumped in the US session. And that was the start of the US session. It was all one-way action down. Okay, so I'll be looking for, see if you can retest into that 45,400 if you want to get some longs off, but look for that higher low. You just want this trend down not to be broken, retest and start, flushing that zone, taking out all the stops below it, and then see if we can work off a higher low. Otherwise, we might get a bit of grind up and a bigger dump. Okay, we just need more action for me at the moment. And Ethereum, That to me looks more of a lower high. So we could, it could flush down and do something like this, or it could do something like this. But I'm sort of looking at that lower high holding. If we can push down and start to consolidate around 32.54, I'm expecting a move lower through there. Okay, take out the stops, consolidate, and take out a few more. Okay, just start to work that move down. Otherwise, it's going to flush, bounce straight back above that level, and start to hold there. Right, that's pretty much all I want to talk about, guys. Hope you enjoyed that. Like I said, if you can help us grow that community and support the YouTube channel, jump on, give us a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Otherwise, have a great weekend, have a good trading day, and we'll see you again on Monday. Cheers, guys. Bye.